It all began in the quiet of my childhood home, in a family where everything appeared picture-perfect on the outside. My father was a well-known businessman in town, respected, powerful, and often the center of attention at local events. Everyone looked up to him, including me, but there was a side to our family that no one knew about, a side I would only begin to understand as I grew older. I had always been the quiet one, the youngest of 3 siblings. My older brother was the golden child, the one everyone expected to take over the family business. My sister, the social butterfly, was the one who could charm anyone into doing anything. But I was the outsider, the one who didn't seem to fit into the picture they had painted for me. My father never expected much from me. It wasn't that he didn't love me, but I was always in the shadow of my older siblings. They were the ones destined for greatness. I, on the other hand, was always just trying to figure out where I fit in. First, I didn't think much of it. I went through life doing what I was told, following the rules set out by my father, my family, society. But as I got older, I began to realize that there was something strange about the way my family operated. I wasn't sure what it was, but something didn't sit right. It was subtle at first, a passing comment here, a strange decision there. But as the years passed, the pieces started to fall into place. My father's business wasn't just about making money. There was something more sinister going on behind the scenes. I would hear hushed conversations late at night when I was supposed to be asleep, the rustling of papers I wasn't meant to see, and the way my father's expression would change when certain names were mentioned. But I didn't understand it at the time. I was too young, too naive to put it all together. One day, when I was about 16, my father asked me to join him in his office. It was a rare invitation, and I remember the nervousness in the pit of my stomach as I walked into that room. I had been there countless times, but this time felt different. The room was dimly lit, the only sound coming from the ticking of the old clock on the wall. My father was sitting at his desk, papers scattered in front of him, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the surface. "Sit down," he said in his usual gruff tone, his eyes never leaving the papers in front of him. I sat down, my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea what he wanted, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. He slid a folder across the desk to me. "This is the future of this family," he said, his voice low and serious. "The business has always been a part of us. But there are things you don't know. Things I never wanted you to know." I opened the folder, and inside was a series of documents, financial statements, and contracts that made no sense to me at the time. My father went on to explain that the family business was more than just a company. It was a legacy, and that legacy was built on secrets that had been passed down through generations. I was stunned. I had never imagined that my father's business wasn't just about earning money. It was a web of connections, deceit, and manipulation. The business had been built on questionable deals, and the foundation was anything but stable. And as it turned out, my father wasn't the only one who had secrets. My brother and sister too were involved in this hidden world, and they had their own roles to play in maintaining the family's empire. I was being groomed for something dark, though I didn't know what it was yet. I'll never forget that moment. I left the office feeling like everything I thought I knew about my family had been shattered. It was as if I had been living in a house built on sand. The very foundation of our success was based on things I couldn't reconcile with my sense of morality. But despite the confusion and fear swirling inside me, one thing was clear. I couldn't walk away. I was in this whether I liked it or not. As the days passed, I began to feel the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I had always believed that the family business was something noble, something worth carrying on. But now I was forced to confront the reality of what it really was. It wasn't about legacy or tradition, it was about power, control, and manipulation. But there was something else I couldn't shake off. The more I learned about the family's operations, the more I realized that I had been left out of important decisions. I was just another pawn in a game I didn't fully understand. The secrets were buried deeper than I ever could have imagined. And I was beginning to see that the world I had grown up in was not what it seemed. As I processed everything, one thing became clear. If I wanted to survive in this world, I would need to play the game. But I wasn't going to do it their way. I wasn't going to be another pawn. I was going to take control of my destiny, and I was going to do it in a way no one expected. It didn't take long for me to realize that the only way I would be able to move forward was to play the game, but on my own terms. The family business, as much as it was my inheritance, was full of secrets. Over the years, I started to understand the deeper dynamics at play. It wasn't just about keeping things in the family. It was about controlling power, maintaining the legacy, and above all, preserving the family's image. But I wasn't built like the others. I didn't care about maintaining the status quo. My vision was something different, something bigger. I started by quietly positioning myself within the family business, taking small projects under my control. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I began working on side ventures that I knew could eventually grow into something significant. My father's empire was based on traditional industries, things like manufacturing, distribution, and real estate. But I knew the future was in technology, in startups, in sectors that no one in my family even thought to explore. And so, I started to quietly invest, making strategic moves that would eventually reshape the family business. While everyone else remained focused on the traditional approach, I was busy researching, learning, and experimenting with ways to modernize. I invested in technology startups, put money into the burgeoning field of renewable energy, and quietly secured patents in areas that my father would have never dreamed of. All of this, of course, was kept secret. I knew better than to share these ideas with anyone, especially my father. He was the type of man who believed in certainty, in a clear-cut path. My ambitions didn't fit into his world, and I knew that. He would never understand. As time went on, my secret projects began to bear fruit. I secured larger investments, formed alliances with key figures in the business world, and slowly but surely, I started to build a network of like-minded individuals who shared my vision. Meanwhile, my family remained oblivious. They continued with their traditional business dealings, and I watched as they struggled to keep up with the rapidly changing world around them. Every time they hit a roadblock, every time a deal failed, I grew stronger. The more they stumbled, the more I knew that my time would come. But the more successful I became, the more I realized that I was playing a dangerous game. The family was beginning to notice that I wasn't just taking on small projects anymore. I was making big moves, large investments, risky but potentially lucrative endeavors. My father and siblings began to look at me with suspicion. They started questioning my loyalty. My brother, who was always the one with the answers, began to probe deeper into my activities. He'd call me up, asking questions, trying to catch me off guard. I knew what he was doing. He was trying to figure out my plan, trying to see if I was still playing by the family's rules. The tension between us grew as I expanded my business ventures. My sister, who had always been the diplomatic one, tried to smooth things over, but even she could see that something was off. They didn't understand why I was so focused on these new ventures. They didn't understand why I was suddenly so secretive. The more I succeeded, the more they questioned my methods, my decisions. But I couldn't afford to back down. I was so close to something huge, something that could change everything, and I wasn't about to let them interfere now. It was during one of these tense family dinners that I had my first major confrontation with my father. He had always been the pillar of the family, the one who laid down the law. And for the first time I stood up to him, refusing to let him dictate my future. He looked at me, his eyes narrowed in disbelief, as if he couldn't comprehend what I was saying. "You've gone too far," he said. "You're risking everything. This is not the way our family works." I stood my ground, feeling a sense of power I had never felt before. "Maybe it's time our family changes," I said. "Maybe it's time we move forward, not backward." That was the moment I knew I had crossed a line. My family wasn't going to let me get away with this. They saw me as a threat to the control they had worked so hard to build. And they would stop at nothing to protect it. But what they didn't realize was that I wasn't the naive kid I once was. I had learned the game. I had played it better than they ever could. And now it was my turn to take control. Over the next few months, the pressure grew. I continued to expand my secret empire, all while maintaining my position within the family business. I had to play both sides, keep my family happy while quietly building my own fortune. But the walls were closing in. Every time I made progress, my father and brother pushed back harder. They were starting to see the cracks in their own empire, and they blamed me. But I wasn't backing down. I had already made my move. I had already set the stage for the showdown that was inevitably coming. The tipping point came unexpectedly. My father, after years of watching me quietly grow my influence, finally confronted me again, this time with my brother by his side. I knew this was it. The moment where everything would come to a head. The room was tense, thick with the weight of what was about to happen. I could feel my father's gaze burning into me, the years of disappointment and distrust finally boiling over. "You've done it now," my father said, his voice rough. "You've crossed the line. You've been playing this game behind our backs. And now it's time to pay the price." I stood up, calm and steady. "I'm not the one who's been hiding things," I replied. "I've been doing what you never had the guts to do. Take risks, innovate, build something that will last. This business has been stuck in the past for too long, and I won't let it drag me down." My brother, usually the quiet observer, finally spoke up. "You're ruining everything we've built. This family worked hard for what we have, and you're throwing it all away for some crazy ideas. You think you're the only one who can see the future? You think you're better than all of us?" I could see the anger in his eyes, the desperation in his voice. It was clear he didn't understand. He didn't understand the cost of progress, the risk of innovation. He thought his way was the only way, and he was scared of losing the control he had always had. But I wasn't scared anymore. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not better than you. But I've learned things you'll never understand. I've learned how to take control of my own future, how to make something out of nothing. You're too busy protecting what's already here to see the future. But I see it. And I'm going to build it, whether you like it or not." The silence that followed was deafening. My father looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and pride. It was clear he knew I had one. He had always wanted me to follow in his footsteps, to take over the family business. But what he didn't realize was that I had already surpassed him. I had built my own legacy, one that was bigger, stronger, and more sustainable than anything he had ever done. The confrontation wasn't just a battle for control. It was a battle for my own identity, my own future. And in that moment I knew that I had not only won the fight, I had won the right to live life on my own terms. The family was left reeling, not just from the financial shift I had caused, but from the realization that I had built something they could never take from me. I had created a hidden empire while they were too busy clinging to the past. I had proven that, no matter how many people doubted me, no matter how many times they called me crazy, I could build something that would outlast them all. As I walked out of that room, I felt a sense of satisfaction like no other. My empire was secure. And more importantly, I had proven that I could create my own legacy, one that would never be overshadowed by the past. The victory wasn't just in the money, the power, or the business. It was in knowing that, against all odds, I had finally built something worth fighting for. And nothing could take that away from me. Lesson learned. Sometimes the path to success is hidden in the shadows. When the world tells you that you're crazy, that your dreams are impossible, that's when you know you're on the right track. Keep going, even when it seems like everyone is against you. The greatest victories often come from the most unlikely places.